2023 Full Circle Investment Group meetup. It's so good to see everybody. We skipped a month, so I haven't seen you guys since August, but I'm glad you're here. Welcome in. We are at the end of October. How is that even possible? Are you guys enjoying your fall? Yeah. It's been really mild. I've been happy about it, loving the colors and everything this year. And I'm pretty sure we're going to start singing Christmas carols here before too long, so I'm just trying to enjoy this pre-Christmas mode that we're in right now. We want to get started tonight, but I know you've been here before, a lot of you, but I do see some new faces, so I want to take a moment to explain what this group is about. This group exists to help as many people to financial freedom as possible. That's our mission. We welcome 3 different types of people here. There's the people who are looking for their first deal, looking for education, haven't got started yet. You're welcome here. We've all been in that position, and so that's a valuable asset to our community, but also the midterm, maybe you've got a couple going on and you're looking for some resources, you're looking for some more education, you're looking to connect, you're welcome here also. The third group are our veteran investors. You're vital to this group. We need your voice. We need you to calm us down. We're getting too excited. We need your experience and for you to share, to pass along back into the community. And so we welcome you as well. I'll steal Brian's line and say the fourth group that we don't welcome are big egos and attitudes and sales pitches. That's not welcome here, right, Brian? So, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. So welcome in tonight. A little bit of housekeeping. We got drinks right back here, bathrooms around the corner. You all got your name tags. If you didn't get one of the handouts, raise your hand and we'll bring it to you. Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay, let's do the intro. Let's welcome our speaker. Tonight we have Zach Matson. He's the owner of Matson Homes, a real estate developer and builder since 2016. Zach started house hacking and flipping and got into development in 2020. Zach's passionate about the Idaho outdoors. He says you'll find him skiing, hiking, rafting, backpacking. What else? What am I missing? Hot springs, all the things here that Idaho has to offer. So today he's going to share with us about evaluating properties for infill development as well as new construction. So let's give a warm welcome to Zach Matson.
Thank you. All right, thanks for coming out, everybody. So yeah, I guess we'll jump into this a little bit. I am going to ask you guys a little bit of a favor. So everybody likes to go into the back, but there are going to be some slides up here that is probably going to be beneficial to take pictures of. So if you guys want to get as close as possible, it'll make me feel more welcome, but also there's going to be some good content up here that you guys can take pictures of the slides. And there's a little special at the very end. You'll have my link tree where you can get all my contact info. So all you guys that actually showed up today, if you guys have any actual questions or you want me to look at a property for you that you're interested in and give you some advice on or run some numbers for you, I'd be happy to. So that's just for you guys that showed up. Okay, so number one thing is what is infill? Actually, can I get a raise of hands? Who's actively participating in real estate right now? Okay, so a little more than half of you maybe? Okay, cool. So by the end of this, hopefully I'll give you guys a way to save at least 10% or so on real estate. And part of that is doing infill construction. So 10% or more, by the way, is if you just hire everything out and you find the right deal. So infill construction is basically just using what's already currently available and just maximizing its potential. So in Boise, we have not a lot, but we have some vacant lots. We have a lot of old lots that have extra space on them that you can add units to. Okay, so these are some of the different options. Again, it's kind of the wording's a little small, so I'll go over these. But one of the simplest and least costly ways is just to add an ADU. It's an accessory dwelling unit, or granny quarters, or whatever you want to call it. But this can basically be added onto an existing house or a completely separate detached unit. This is one of the easiest ways to add a dwelling unit. You can build this on top of a garage. You can put it in, remodel a basement. You can add it onto the back of your house. There's very few limitations as far as the lots that you can do this on. Most lots, there's some way to add a mother-in-law suite or ADU. Then you have existing lots of record from the Boise Bench and the North End. So back in the 1930s, when the North End and the Bench was platted, they were actually platted as skinny lots. So there are these 25 and 35 foot wide lots. And what happened, a lot of these people back in the 30s would buy 4 lots at a time, and then they'd go and build a 700 or 800 square foot house. So you have this tiny little house sitting on 4 lots. So what you're seeing now a lot of with these row homes that you guys are seeing a lot, those are on these lots where people built a small house and then never built on the rest of them. So some of those houses get torn down, but like a deal that I just finished, there's a house sitting on 2 lots, and then they never built on the other 2 lots. So it was just 2 lots sitting there, and there was very minimal that we had to do to actually put houses on it. Let's see. So then the next thing is tearing down houses or buildings to maximize existing zoning. So I really do my best not to tear down houses if at all possible. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense not to tear it down, or it's in such bad condition it doesn't make sense. But sometimes you have a single house sitting on 6 lots and it's taking up 3 of the lots, and it just makes sense to tear down, and it's not really a historic house anyway. And then sometimes you can find a single house that sits on a large lot. My actual very first development deal, it was a single house, about 2,000 square feet, but it was really 1,000 square foot footprint, and it sat on almost an acre. So we actually built 6 additional houses, and it was right in the middle of the Boise Bench. Actually, if you guys know this area, Overland and Latah, that was my very first development. It's just right behind the Overland Bar. And then sometimes you have the large infill opportunities. So example of this would be the Idaho Transportation Department lot on State Street. So that's a little bit too big for me to take down right now, but that's technically infill. And then another option is going through a rezone. So sometimes you'll see this. So a good example is along Hill Road. There's some, I think it's A1 zoning, but it's basically 1 unit per acre or 2 units per acre, something like that. And a lot of those houses are sitting on 1 acre, 2 acres. A couple years ago, I saw a few of these come on the MLS. And there's no guarantee you're going to be able to rezone it. So a lot of times there's some opportunity here where you can, if you can tie up the house under contract, I'm going to get way too involved here. But if you can tie up under contract for long enough to figure out if you can rezone it, that's the best way to do it. You just don't want to put all your money in this basket counting on a rezone because it's not guaranteed. But I know in certain circumstances, the city is very much for it. So get to know the zoning codes, what they mean. But when it all comes down to it, Google's your friend. So if you're not sure what R1C is or R3 is or C1 or C2 or M3 or whatever it is, just Google and make sure you put the city behind what you're trying to look up because there's different zoning codes for different things. So for the sake of time, I'm going to Boise and Garden City. That's kind of my bread and butter. I do have, I've tried to do some stuff in Caldwell and Nampa before. I might have a development coming up in Caldwell here next year, but we'll see. Okay, so for Boise, we have single family residential urban, that's R1C. Where do we go? Can we go back? There we go. Okay, so R1C, that's 8 units per acre. That's the existing zoning code. I did include the new zoning code because that's changing December 1. So this is actually going to be kind of key if you guys want to get into some infill development because starting in December, all of R1C is going up to 12.4 units per acre. They're also loosening the restrictions on ADUs, which I could do a whole nother topic on this, but we won't get into it. So the key thing to remember, though, is if you have 0.162 acres, it's big enough for two units. In the old zoning code, you needed a quarter of an acre, so 0.25, and it's going down to 0.162, which is an extremely common lot size in Boise. Then you have medium density residential, R2, so that's up to 14.5 units per acre with the existing code. The new zoning code actually is taking away this minimum or the maximum density. You just have to meet the requirements of the zoning codes, the setbacks, and the requirements for the small lots. Again, this is all stuff that I could talk about for a lot longer too. Then you have R3, multifamily residential. So that's up to 43.5 units per acre. And again, the new zoning code is eliminating that maximum density, but it still needs to meet their minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and height restrictions. Okay, Garden City. Also, just because you guys are here, I'm gonna give you a little lowdown. Garden City is probably the hottest development area you can possibly find right now, probably in multi-states, because it's all zoned R3. All these three-quarter acre lots in Garden City, they're everywhere. You see like one of these coming on the market a month, probably at least, and you can fit so there's 35 units an acre is how those are zoned. So those 0.69 acre lots, I think it's like 22 or 24 units you can fit on there. So lots of opportunities. In fact, I just saw one come on the market yesterday. And then you also see C2 zoning, which is no maximum density or height restrictions. So this is the area that's closer to the river, and that's where you see all these apartments going up in Garden City along the river. It's because it's C2 zoning. And there has been stuff on the market there too. I haven't done anything with that C2 in Garden City yet. It's a little bit bigger than I'm doing right now. Okay, how to analyze. So the formula to figure out how many units you can put and how to maximize the lot, take the lot size, so the percentage, or the 0.162, for example, and multiply that by the units per acre. So when you have 35 units an acre times 0.69, that's how you get up to the maximum potential of that lot. Can somebody do that math for me really quick? Take out your calculator. 0.69 times 35. Okay, so 24, like I said. So that was just off of memory, but so those 0.69 acre lots in Garden City, when you see those come on the market, you can do 24 units on those up to. Sometimes it's a little tricky to fit all that, but if you get a good land guy, he can figure it out, or very close. Okay, so lot cost per unit. So if you talk to some development professionals, I'll say like realtors or people that do land development, a lot of times you'll get, I think it's funny numbers, which is like the cost per square foot on land. And honestly, like I could care less what the cost per square foot is on land, because it all has to do with what you can do with it. So if you have, for example, if you have agricultural land and it's going at $250 an acre, $250 a square foot, but then you have commercial that's at $6 a square foot, those two don't relate whatsoever. So it ultimately comes down to what you can do with it. So I look at my lot cost per unit. So that's the purchase price divided by the total units that you can build on it is your lot cost per unit. And this just makes the math way more simple. Okay, so we have 5 different phases of development, and this is where you want to pay attention to your cost of each one. The other thing with this too is you have exit strategies at every single one of these. Whoops. So your pre-closing / due diligence period, ideally, you can actually do that with entitlements, but a lot of sellers don't want to wait, 12 plus months to get entitlements, so sometimes you have to close quicker. But in that pre-closing / due diligence period, assuming it's that you have to close before entitlement is done, You're gonna have your earnest money that's you're gonna pay for up front, and then your site engineering. So that's basically just hiring an architect or an engineer to do like a very basic lot layout, and that's what you bring to the city to just figure out if they're gonna say yes to it or not. So you do some due diligence with the city, but not full due diligence. Then you have your city fees. Depending on the city, sometimes you have some minor review fees. And then another cost with that is surveys. So sometimes you actually have to have a survey done, especially if you're doing a lot split or something. And then you have entitlements. So that takes anywhere from 10 to 24 months, depending on who you're working with. And then, so in there, so typically, I usually end up having to close on my deals if they're, a lot of these bigger builders that are buying 40 acres, sometimes they get entitlements done before they have to close. But anyway, once you close on it, you have your interest or investor fees. This is where most of your engineering and architecture costs come in, because you have to have all the entire site engineered, so the roads, sidewalks, sewer, water, all that fun stuff. And then you have your city fees, again, a little bit more hefty fees there. And then this is when you have to start factoring in carrying costs as well. So, when you own a property for at least a year, you're gonna have to pay the property taxes on it. Well, even any minimal time, but you'll start having to cut checks for property taxes, utilities, and insurance. And then you have your horizontal development. So this is once it's entitled. Do you guys all know what I mean by entitled, by the way? I know probably some of you do. This is basically, it means that you have it approved through City Hall. So they've given you the go-ahead to go build. Part of that too, sometimes it's separate, is you actually have to have the construction plans approved. So those are stamped, and then once it's shovel ready, they call it, that's when it's entitled. So then you have the horizontal development. So at that point, that's where you're actually, you bring out all the equipment and you're digging, putting all the infrastructure in. So that's another 6 to 12 months. Typically, the actual construction can only take like 4 months. But then after that, there's actually a lot of rounds of back and forth with the city to get plat signed and that kind of thing. So that actually adds it's pretty much double the time to just get all the paperwork done. So the cost with that, you have your interest or investor or loan fees. Construction costs are going to be your water, sewer, landscape, irrigation, roads, sidewalks, streetlights, fire hydrants, electrical, gas, whatever else they want to tell you to do, what they want to tell you to do. And then you have more city fees, more ACHD fees, more county fees, and then more carry costs again. Then once you have it developed, it's vertical ready once you have a signed plat. So the final plat signed, it's recorded at the county, and you have your building plans approved, ready to build. So that vertical construction takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months. During COVID, or actually shortly after COVID, when we had all the supply chain issues, is when it was taking 12 months. If you're really managing your project properly, you can get it done in 5 to 7 months. So then you have more interest, investor loan fees, your construction costs with that, permitting and connection fees. So the city really likes to rack up the fees, but they like to do it in different segments. You have your carry costs there too again. What was that? And then your final phase is selling it or renting it out, refinancing, whatever you're going to do with it. Plan on 6 months, 12 months if the 6 to 12 months depending on what the market's doing. But then you want to factor in your carrying costs there, like your interest or investor costs, your selling or leasing fees, marketing, and then your carrying costs there. Your carrying costs, by the way, go up as you get more development done. So like when you start the vertical construction, that's when you start paying your trash fees, although it's a reduced amount, but you have to start paying it right away. You have to pay the city sewer costs, your electrical bill starts going up, that kind of thing. So this is a really general cost breakdown. Typically, your hard costs, which are the actual construction fees or costs, I'd say 65 to 70% of the project. Interest or investor fees, I'd say, are usually about 15 to 25%, depending on where you pick up the project at. And then soft costs and carry costs are somewhat minimal. I'd say they're around 5% combined. Oh yeah, sorry. Soft costs are basically anything that's not directly related to construction. So that's your engineering fees, your engineering costs, your surveys, pretty much just anything that something physically isn't done on the property. Okay, cost breakdowns. So for your diligence period, this is just further cost breakdown. So earnest money, so usually about 1%. And then you have your architecture site design. So this is in the very initial period. Just factor in like $5,000 to pay like an architect to get you a very basic lot configuration. Sometimes this will be a lot less. Sometimes it'll be a lot more. It just depends on how big the project is or how much detail you want. City fees, $1,000. Sometimes it's only $100. Sometimes it's nothing. It just really depends on the city. Survey, a really basic survey, $3,000 or so. Again, if you're wanting more, like if you want a topographic survey, it's going to cost you more. So sometimes you do need that stuff up front. Not usually, and more. That's normally going to be in this next phase here, which is entitlements. Sometimes this and the previous one is combined, like I said earlier. So then your architecture, site design, engineering. So I usually just figure in about $3,500 per lot. Could be a little bit less, could be a lot more. Again, depends on the site. This is where you want to start figuring out and actually get estimates. And then you have city fees, usually factor in about $1,000 per lot. By the way, all these numbers are pretty basic, but if you factor all this stuff in, you're going to be pretty close. Carry costs, $1,000 per lot per year, not a ton, but you will have taxes on land, which are a lot lower. But you'll have some minor carry costs here and there. And then you have your interest or investor costs. So I usually factor in this phase about 10% is what I pay my investors for that first year. Some people are going to be more, some people are going to be less. I know there's investors that pay developers that pay their investors 5%. There's guys that pay a lot more than that. So, okay, on the horizontal development, so you have your construction costs. So kind of a general rule of thumb, and again, this is very general. But if you're looking at smaller developments, $500,000 per acre as a starting point is a good rough number. Really, like the bigger the project is, the more or the less it's going to cost per unit. So sometimes, but really per acre, I guess you're pretty good, especially up until you get up until to the bigger developments, which we're not talking about anyway. Really, you'll want to get cost estimates in that previous phase in the development, in the entitlement phase. You can actually, you'll actually have your engineered plans, and you can actually get your cost estimates based on those engineered plans. And then you have your architecture, site design, engineering. So this is just further engineering, about $1,000 per lot. Sometimes this is further surveys where they have to stake the lots, that kind of thing. And then you have your city ACHD county fees, $5,000 per lot. ACHD basically is $3,500 per unit that you have to pay just to have the right to use the road with a new unit. Carry costs, you have $1,000 per lot. And then again, interest, investor costs. So this is that second phase of horizontal development. Really, if you look at development in basically three total years and break it down into, instead of 5, like 3, you basically have your entitlement phase, which is about a year. You have your horizontal phase, which is about a year. And then you have your vertical phase, which is about a year. And that's plus or minus, but if you divide it into 3-year periods, those are pretty close. And then you kind of figure out what your interest costs are going to be, or what your payout to your investors is going to be. And then you go to the vertical construction. So then on the vertical construction costs, this is actually what I charge people when I do client builds. If you become a contractor, these are going to be less. Or if you pay, I know a lot of builders are actually a lot more than this, or at least about 10% more than this. Just asking around, I just typically, I don't have a lot of overhead. So when I do client builds for people, I just, I make a good profit. I don't have to charge a ton of money. But if you want builder grade, 155 to 175 per square foot, this is. And then for mid-level, so which is what I pretty much do on all my houses, if any of you guys follow me on social media, most of my houses that you see are this mid-grade level, where we have like good quality finishes. This is, you know, quartz counters, soft closed doors and drawers that are semi-custom or custom cabinets. We'll have tile like master bathrooms. We'll have some design elements, and then, you know, upper mid-grade finishes. And these are all pretty much custom designed, and we end up 200 to 220 per square foot there. And then when you get into the really custom high-end stuff, it's 250 per square foot plus. I mean, this could go up as high as 500. It really just depends on the building, where it's at, and what kind of finishes you're using. And then on top of that, so drafting and engineering. So I have my own drafter, but like, let's say you go out and get your own plans. You could buy them off the internet for probably as low as $2,500 per house. And you might have to have them modified a little bit. Or you could go a lot more if you have somebody custom draft you a house. Then you have permitting and connection fees. So that's about 2.5% of your construction costs. Carry costs, I usually factor in about $3,000 per house per year. So that's all your utilities. And then again, your interest and investor costs. All right, so let's analyze a live deal. So I actually have a property under contract. I was telling some of you guys, I actually stopped buying deals for the last year and a half because of what the market was doing. So I wanted to kind of see where we were going. We did kind of hit a floor, I feel like, in the spring. I feel like right now, though, we're actually going to dip a little bit over the winter before coming back up in the spring again. But I don't think the bottom's going to fall out. So Garden City, so this is the hotspot I was telling you about. So this is actually kind of a small lot. So this is 301 East 44th Street. This is actually on the MLS. By the way, I have a development literally right here on 43rd Street, like kitty corner to this lot. But this is 0.29 acres. Somebody want to do the math on that really quick? Remember how many units you could do? This, by the way, this is R3 zoning in Garden City, which is 35 units an acre. Anybody got that? 10 units actually, so 0.29 acres times 35. So 10 units, just barely over 10. You don't really need to see this, but basically this is just saying, so during your due diligence, there's a lot of good. The first place to start is the county assessor's website. This overhead actually came from the Ada County assessor. So you can actually pull up this overhead. There's some cool tools. It's not on this picture, but there's a tool on the Ada County assessor's website where you can actually measure the width and the length. And you do need to know that because that'll be good information on how, like, what you can fit in there. And then that's a starting point. You want actually exact dimensions, but that'll get you pretty close. And then the title company can give you this information. I'm actually like a registered member with Title I, so I can just log in and get this information pretty easily, but you can call up a title company and get this information. And they tell you exactly what the lot size is. And then they give you the legal description. Again, I can't necessarily see it, but they'll give you the legal description, which sometimes gives you the exact dimensions. Sometimes all it's saying is what legal parcel it is, but then they'll also have a tab where you can actually get all the deeds and the locator maps, which is where it was originally platted, and that locator or that map will show you the exact size of the lot. So it'll show you the plat, which is, it plats out what size the lot is. So when I looked all this stuff up, I found out this lot was 100 foot wide by 125 foot deep. So doing the math on here, maximum units, so lot size to 100 foot by 125. So 1,200, that's wrong, 12,500 square foot. So it's 0.287 acres times 35 units per acre. It was like 10.02 units. Now, The other thing you kind of need to do, and you can do this on your own, or you can reach out to somebody, or just call the city directly, whatever you want to do. But there's a lot of information in the zoning code. It's all online. You could go through it all, or you can just call the city and they'll get you some information. You just don't necessarily want to rely on the information over the phone from the city. It's a good start, though. Anyway, so I found out by looking through the zoning code and having a meeting with the city that I have to go through a minor subdivision process. So they have like their subdivision process, and then they have the minor subdivision. This lot is too small to go through the regular subdivision, so they have a minor subdivision, which is actually kind of beneficial for these small lots because they reduce the setback requirements. So instead of needing 15-foot rear yards, I can actually do 5-foot rear yards, which allows me to actually get up to 10 units. I haven't figured out exactly how to do that yet, but I've gotten 8 or 9. You also have to meet the parking requirements, which are in Garden City. It's if you have 2 bedrooms or more, you have to have 2 parking spots. If it's only 1 bedroom, you only need 1. And then for every unit, you need 0.5 additional spaces per unit. So if you do 10 units, and if they're all 2 bedroom or more, I need 25 parking spaces. So if you do townhomes, for example, and 2-car garages, you have 2 per unit there, and then you just need basically 5 guest parking spots. What I also found out is you must put in roads and sidewalks. I thought I could get away with doing sidewalks on one side. Unfortunately, one of the requirements is that you have to have every single unit has to have direct connection to 44th Street. So that means sidewalks on both sides of the road. And that's probably about the only way to fit in 10 units is to have a road and units on both sides. But the private road can be 20 foot wide. It doesn't have to be a full street, 38 feet wide or 28 feet wide. And I have more due diligence to do. I still need to talk to the fire department, ACHD, the garbage service. But that's basically kind of where I got started on this one. All right, so I'm going to show you how this deal could pencil out. So the first, I'm going to show you a spreadsheet. The first one is if you had this deal under contract and you hired everything out. I'm going to show you how those numbers would work out or how I would analyze it if I was doing it. So can we switch to that first? There we go. Okay, so this was on the market for $300,000. I did notice when I looked at this that it had been on the market this time actually only like 2 weeks. But when I looked at the history, it had been on the market for like a year. And had several price reductions. It was on the market for $300,000 and previously and never. That's my timer telling me I'm okay. So this is how I kind of analyze it at first. So $250,000 purchase price, closing cost 1%. So I usually factor in about $50,000 for architecture and engineering. And then you have your survey. This is just the basic survey. There's more survey costs in this number as well. And then carry costs, so those are just basic carry costs, and then government fees. So this is what I'm figuring out what should cost me to get it entitled. And then if it takes 18 months, so I know Garden City actually takes a little bit longer, so it's more than 12 months. So this is what I factored in. I think I factored in 12%, or maybe 10% plus an extra 6% for those extra six months, I think is how I figured that out. And then you have land value. So because we don't have an approved plan, I just ran these numbers based on how many lots we could do. And I know whether I'm making money or losing money depending on how many lots. By the way, this is just initial numbers. I'm not banking on any of this quite yet at this point. But I did look up entitled lot value. So there's been approved projects. So entitled is shovel ready, remember? So this is your first exit point. Actually, it's the second, because the first one, all you would really have to do at your first exit strategy, you could lock this up under contract, get somebody to put you together a basic site layout, and you could probably turn this around as a 10-unit subdivision I'm guessing you could probably sell this at least 40,000 a lot, so 400,000. So you could actually make, 80 grand probably just by, and actually you don't even have to spend that 50,000. So you could probably make 100 grand just by putting this under contract, getting a basic site layout together, and then selling it to somebody who has an idea. Then your second exit strategy here is your entitled lot value. So this is an actual project sold that was entitled like 2 blocks away that had townhouses for $62,700 a lot. So I just kind of round down a little bit. So this is where you get your total value and then your total equity based on what your total costs are. So if you notice, the more units you can put, so you can make just by getting entitled. So going through that 12 to 18 month process, getting entitled, you can make an extra 100 grand, 120,000. Then if we scroll down, okay, so development period. So this is where you actually have the excavators out there putting in all the project or all the utilities and stuff. So your development costs. So notice how it's only a $20,000 difference from 6 lots to 10 lots, and that's because, especially on a small lot like this, there's a level where you have to spend no matter what. It's just the size of the lot. You're going to have to put that infrastructure in. Especially the closer these units are together, it's not that much more to put in a few extra things, because all you're really doing at that point is just running extra sewer lines, extra water lines, a little bit extra power. Sometimes that's not even out of your pocket. And then you have, oh, by the way, too, this is, I think this was the opposite way. This is actually, if I analyze this deal for myself, I think I'll know at the end here, but the numbers look like it. So development, this is what, how I analyze it. These are my costs. If I were to develop this for somebody, I would have my markup on that. So I'll show you guys the next slide or the next spreadsheet how this works out. But then I put a contingency on here. Costs have been crazy the last. I'm sure any of you guys that have done remodels or new construction know the construction costs have been nuts. From one month to the next, it seems like they'll go up 10% sometimes. So I put 20% contingency in there, and then I factored in my loan or interest costs over 12 months, and then my total costs here, and then I have my all-in, my cost, so all the numbers from up top, plus the development cost. That's my all-in cost, and then my developed land value. This is your third exit strategy right here, where you can actually sell them as entitled lots. You can sell them to individual, like the end user, where they hired their own builder, or you can sell it to a builder that's just builds. They'll pay a little bit of a premium on a lot. Sorry, not a premium. They'll get a lot at a discount, but it'll be a premium based on what you're in it for. If you can slide over there a little bit, there we go. So we have all-in costs. So let's assume we can do 9 units, which I think we're going to end up around 8 or 9, I think, on this one. Then you have your developed land value. I think this is based on 125,000 per lips, for example. Like if I don't know if any of you guys get wholesale deals, but they'll show you like an LTV, but it's not going to include all your overhead. All it's including is the purchase price plus your construction costs. On development, I'm a LTV of 65% all in. All right. If we go down to the vertical phase here, can we scroll back over? Actually, no, we don't need to do that. Vertical construction costs. So this is based on 1,200 square foot units, and then my build cost per square unit. So that's how I get this vertical construction cost plus some of those extra costs that I showed earlier in those slides. And then you have your vertical loan interest, and then additional interest for all the stuff that you're still paying on. And then your total vertical costs, that's all your interest and all your overhead. So your total all-in cost, so about around 2.5 million total vertical value. When I ran ARVs on townhomes, 1,200 square foot, about 400,000. So that's based on $400,000 units. And then the total equity. So usually when I look at development deals, if I can make 100 grand per unit, that's kind of my target. And sometimes that works out better. Sometimes it works out worse. Like right now, like where we ran into construction costs skyrocketing. And then, if you have extra hold times, that gives you a good buffer where there's a lot of unknown stuff and you don't have to worry too much about losing money. But if you look at this equity percent and debt to value, again, that debt to value is your total all-in cost, including everything that you owe to all your investors or lenders, or what you've already paid. So that's basically your profit percentage at the very end is what that is. Okay, let's go to this other spreadsheet, please. Should be the next tab up on the top there. So this is if any one of you bought it and just wanted to hire everything out and didn't want to worry about getting your contractor's license and dealing with all the stuff that has to do. So these numbers are all the same. If we scroll down to the development, the orange section there. Okay, and then, oh yeah, there we go. And then scroll over. So these numbers, by the way, these development costs and vertical construction costs, so that's if you were to hire me or somebody else to do all this stuff. So this is giving them a profit, your builder or your developer. So that's paying them to do stuff. Then you have your contingency in there again. And then your just total vertical, your loan costs. And then your interest costs, total all-in cost. And then if we scroll over a little bit here. So if you guys just want to hire a developer, you could actually go through the whole entitlement process by hiring stuff out, hire a developer to put the infrastructure in, and sell the lots off, and you could make $350,000 on this deal by paying other people to do it. If you notice here on the vertical, you're actually less profit because on the construction vertical right now, you're probably losing money on that deal. And because of this might not pencil out the same, but it might be about the same. But if you want to, let's say, for example, you're into buy and hold investing and you just want to rent this out long term, you're getting this at a 6% discount right there. But ultimately, if you're doing that, your loan costs are going to be a lot less because you're not using short-term lending, you're using longer-term lending, and it's less cost. So really, when it comes down to it, you could probably save about 10% on each unit. So instead of buying it for $400,000, you're maybe all in for $360,000, and then maybe those numbers pencil out. Really, like when it comes down to it, when you're analyzing deals, you really just have to know what you're looking for, and then kind of know your numbers too. Like if you're in it for the long term, like maybe you're trying to add some rentals and you want to add 10 rentals here, and you know what your rental market is in Garden City, and what your loan costs are going to be. Even if you maybe break even, that's probably better than a lot of rentals that are on the market right now. And then long term, obviously, you have costs or savings based on that. So I think that's pretty much. Oh, if we go back to the presentation. Okay, so that's my link tree there. If you guys want to take out your phones really quick, I have 2 gift cards. Whoever scans and messages me first, the first 2 people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hang on, let me take my phone off of airplane mode. Oh yeah, all right. Well, take a picture of it and you'll have to figure it out later. Well, let's do this then. We'll just we'll open it up for questions, and the first person to ask a question gets a gift card.
Oh, we got Eric. Let me come to you. We've got people watching on YouTube, and they can't hear you if you don't have the microphone, so here we go.
Well, I'm not sure if you really keep up with the economic data, but today Federal Reserve Chair Powell said that inflation is still too high. Surprise, surprise. So he says in 2 weeks, they might raise interest rates. They don't know if it's by half or a quarter of a percentage. So what are your plans in the next 3 months, the next year, with these raising rates?
Yeah, so that's definitely, I'm planning on possibly prices coming down another 10%. So in Boise, well, depending on the market too. So like different neighborhoods in around the Treasure Valley have seen different price decreases. For example, Garden City, since the beginning of the rate increases, the prices in Garden City have come down maybe 5%. Whereas different parts like the Bench is closer to 15%. There's a neighborhood in Eagle that some house prices came down like 35%. But in general, depending on the neighborhood, around 10%. So that is a good point. I'm planning on probably at least one more rate hike, maybe 2 or 3 over the next couple of years. And you do have to kind of plan long term. The one thing with the real estate market in Boise is, and really across the country, if we had an oversupply of inventory, we'd see a giant drop in prices. But right now, even with the interest rates going up and housing being more unaffordable than ever, we still have a lack of supply. So it's taken a lot of people out of the market, but it's also people still need housing, so people are still going to buy houses even though they're unaffordable now, and that's just really the game right now. So, but yeah, when I analyze deals on my end, I want to make sure I'm accounting for a 10% drop in price and I can still make money. Yeah.
Okay, another question. On my way over here, show of hands, who would be interested in seeing a presentation from a mortgage lender on market data from the top economists? Anybody interested in coming? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, on your fees to the city and everything, are those what you would hear being called impact fees, or were those not included? And those numbers just...
So those numbers included impact fees, but there's a ton of fees. Like there's review fees, there's design review fees, there's meeting fees, they nickel and dime you like crazy, and you're like, oh, it's not that much. It's $200 here, $200 there, $1,000 there. But then when it all adds up, it's a lot of money over the 3 years that you're doing stuff.
I have a question on the ADUs. What percentage, or I guess, how do I want to word this? Putting an ADU on an existing property, what kind of bump do you see, or percentage increase do you have any for that property?
For
What's the
your value?
What's the value? I guess that's what I want to say.
I mean, ultimately, that comes down to what you're actually building. But I will say, okay, so I just built ADU for somebody. We just finished, and they just rented out as a Airbnb.
Right.
Their value was appraised $400,000 higher. I gave them a really good deal on the build, and it was like $260,000. So they actually saw a $140,000 profit margin just by building an ADU.
So your
really,
ADU was $400,000. You built.
I built it for $260,000,
Okay.
and their appraised value went up $400,000.
Okay.
That's appraisals don't always line up with the market, but
Right.
you
Okay.
can it really depends on the area and what the rent is, but ADUs are a little bit easier to predict also than like commercial multifamily, because that is based a lot more on the interest rate. But ADUs, like if you can add $1,500 to your rent, that's adding a good chunk of money.
The other question I have is your lot price. If you have $100,000 lot price, do you have a formula that you say it's going to be 25% of the home price, or no?
So again, I kind of looked at it as funny numbers. Like
Okay.
a lot of people rely on that stuff. I don't, because
that's what
to
I've
me,
heard. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, to me, it's my general rule of thumb, just so you guys know. So if you have an entitled lot, I typically don't even look at it unless it's around like 100,000 or less. Sometimes, depending on the area, so like if it's on the north end, maybe I'll pay more, but unless it's in that $100,000 ballpark, I'm not really, actually, let me take this back a little bit. So 100,000 is if it's entitled and you don't have to put a ton of infrastructure in. The more infrastructure you have to put in, the less I'm going to pay for it. So if it's a small, so let's say it's a 10-unit development, it has no infrastructure. If I have to put the infrastructure in, I'm not looking at it unless it's around 50,000, so half of that. And then if it's entitled but not a lot of infrastructure, then so if it's, for example, like on the Boise bench and you have a lot that's already on a street and you know all you're gonna have to do is put sewer and water from the street, it's not gonna cost that much, so I'll look at around 100,000. So does that kind of answer your question?
Hey, Zach, thanks for the presentation. That was really good. As far as you mentioned the land sales, and you make $100K if you're going to sell the dirt, or have a lot less profit due to the vertical. Obviously, that makes selling the dirt a little harder, to the end builder. What are you seeing from, which then incentivize the build and hold type of model from lenders and rates and what banks are looking for, and then that kind of hybrid of we're going to sell 5 and keep 5, or to pay off the debt a little bit more and then keep some. Have you explored that much, or what are you seeing in the market for what people are looking for and that kind of model?
So I try to be a little bit conservative on numbers, or go by like what's sold recently. So that developed lot cost was based on recent sales. And honestly, like sometimes I look at what some builders are buying stuff for, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because I'm like, they're either happier with more risk / less profit, or they're also running their numbers differently. So for example, I did $400,000 on each of those townhouses, but there's stuff in Garden City that's selling for, $450. There's stuff that's closer to 36 is selling for, $550. So sometimes they're just analyzing the properties differently. I tend to go really conservative. So I know this kind of not directly answering your question, but when I did those numbers, I was a little bit surprised, because that was based on what I was looking at, but not necessarily what somebody else is going to buy it for. So I was trying to be a little bit conservative. Because ultimately, I don't really I care about if I'm going to sell the dirt, if it's going to be profitable for me, but also is it going to make sense for somebody else to buy. So if maybe doesn't make as much sense on the tail end, and then maybe you have to factor in your costs going down a lot less. At the same time, though, that was paying a builder like me to build it, so that already had a profit margin built in for me as the builder, but not for the end user. So there's a little so a builder, for example, is going to analyze that differently on the dirt value, because they have profit built. They know they can turn around and sell it, and they're going to make money because they're the builder themselves, but also on the tail end because they're going to make profit on that sale.
Gotcha. And one other question on the shovel-ready conversation, because I've had projects that people say are shovel-ready, but really they're not. And I mean, final plat is shovel-ready technically. How do you decipher between that, in the marketplace when you're marketing something as shovel-ready or not shovel-ready, and the analysis of, do you put the infrastructure in and then sell it vertical ready? I mean, you kind of already went over that, but I guess if you could just talk a little bit about the differences there and how you approach that and talk about that.
Yeah, so I don't consider it shovel ready if I'm selling it or buying it, unless has a stamped set of engineered plans that you can break ground the next day. Like I literally bought a shovel ready lot that we broke ground the next day. If somebody just has a plan put together but they haven't finished the entitlement process, and by the way, so when a final plat, you don't necessarily have to have it signed to put the infrastructure in. It depends on the city, but most of the time you don't need to have the final plat signed. You have to have the preliminary plat. But basically, shovel ready is a stamped set of construction documents saying this is how we're putting the infrastructure in, and you're ready to break ground the next day. If it doesn't have that stamp, I wouldn't accept it as shovel ready, because ultimately it might take another 6 months to get there. It really depends on the city and all the back and forth, because some of these projects, you might have plans from your engineer and you're like, oh, I can break ground next month. Well, 20 times back and forth with the city later, you have a stamped set of plans. So you really can't rely on what people are saying unless you physically have the stamped set of plans that you can see that's not shovel ready.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Questions? Brian?
You kind of mentioned you don't automatically get a survey on these lots. You said sometimes you don't.
I usually get a survey, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they've already done the survey, so if the seller just did a lot split, sometimes they'll have a survey on record, so then you don't need an initial survey.
Right.
It depends on the project. So like if it's an infill development, sometimes, so for example, I just had these two on the bench, and the seller had to get it surveyed to
Right.
split off the lots, so we didn't need a survey. We needed to have them come out and locate the pins, but
Okay.
that's minimal.
Right. What's a good online source for looking at lots? I mean, besides MLS, if somebody doesn't have access, is there another source that you'd recommend?
No. I mean, I would, if you're not a licensed realtor, I would have a realtor just set
Okay.
you up on a search and go through your realtor. I don't think it's not like, commercial where you have LoopNet. It's really not, there's not a good spot. And
Right.
maybe you find lots on Zillow that are off market. But I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Who are some good cities to work with right now in rezoning? Who's a pain in the ass? I hear a lot of different things on different cities.
So the city of Boise is, they're all about infill. So
Yeah, right.
Boise, every city's a pain in the
Right.
butt to work with because they're just all the red tape to go through. But when a city like wants development going
Yeah,
on,
they
which
want
is
more
Boise-
units.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, exactly.
Who's tough right now? I mean,
I've heard
Garden.
Caldwell's tough.
Yeah.
Garden City is actually great to work with. It's
Right.
just they're so short staffed for what they're dealing with. So it takes a long time.
I like Garden City a lot in this next turn too. I just think from a location standpoint, the age in a lot of those properties, I agree. I think it's going to be a really interesting area. I got a whole bunch of other questions. I'll leave it on. Any tricks on raw materials right now? I mean, you're so far out sometimes. Can you buy ahead of time or anything else you're doing that helps you save on materials?
Well, as far as supply chain stuff, that mostly is done with now. Like you're not
Yeah.
really dealing with those issues. Lumber has actually been low now, so it's really kind of back to normal now. And lumber is actually fairly low from where it's been for the last couple of years. So
Okay. I'm almost done. Have you seen, what kind of changes in terms for investors have you seen with rates going up? And what's your hold period? Is there a 3-year buyout option, or what kind of terms are you looking at?
yeah, so I've kind of been like going. Okay, so first of all, when I started development in 2020, so I've just now come full cycle on my first
Right.
developments. So I had a lot of investors from the beginning where I actually had no idea it was going to take 3 years. I was like, oh, it seems like it'll take 2 years. Luckily, my investors were all like personal friends or family of mine, so they were actually really cool and they understood. And I set the contracts up too, where I was like, oh, So I honestly, I kind of just jumped into it, not really knowing what to expect. But now that I'm like more experienced, I set up my contracts. Typically, what I do now, and I'll get to the right now, but typically what I do now is I usually do 10% for the first year, and then I do 1% per month after that, and just give them the expectation that it's going to be 3 years, maybe 4, depending on what happens. Probably not 4, but you got to set that expectation if they're from the very beginning. If you notice, there's different costs at every level though too. So like I'll bring investors from the very beginning to buy the land, and then there'll be another round of investors at the development, the horizontal phase, and then there'll be mostly just lenders at the vertical phase, but sometimes you'll have, I'll just cover like some of my overhead in there too. So depending on where they come in, I have had a couple investors that because interest rates are going up, they want a couple more percentage points.
Right.
And if the deal makes sense to do that, I'm okay with it. It just needs to pencil.
Right. Okay. Last question. What's your markup if you're doing a build for somebody else?
Yeah, so I pretty much do cost plus 25. So it's a 20% profit margin.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, we've got some gift cards also for best question. Thank you for bringing one, Zach. You want to pick one of your favorite questions?
Let's see. I think in the middle over here. I don't remember what it was, but. Yeah.
Which one? Which one?
In the
Beginning?
middle up front here.
Oh, okay. Here you go. Oh, look at that. Awesome. Cool.
Anybody
Alrighty.
else? Yep.
I saw there were two homes on that lot that you just purchased. Do you keep them rented while you're doing entitlements for that extra
As long as
income?
possible, yep.
Okay.
And by the way, that was a single wide trailer.
I
That
saw it.
was,
It was a
yeah,
trailer.
and then it was just a garage,
Okay.
like a
Oh, it was,
like a
okay.
block,
Okay.
cinder block garage.
But
But yeah,
just to have some
I'll rent
income.
it, yeah, until the last possible minute, basically.
And then where's your demo? Is that all in the entitlement when your
Or
costs there?
the lot development costs,
Okay,
yep.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? We good? All right. Why don't we do something we haven't done for a long time because he wasn't here last time? Let's hand it back over to Brian. Thank you, Zach, so much
Yeah, you
for
bet.
coming in tonight. All right, and let's welcome Brian Anderson.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Zach, I didn't realize it, but we like matched tonight. That was pretty cool. You look good tonight. Yeah, man, you look awesome. Hey, how's it going? I'm Brian Anderson. Started this group many moons ago. I just want to thank Zach again. Oh, I forget how bright it is up here. It's ridiculous. That was awesome. Thank you. Can we clap it up for Zach? That was. You get another round of applause. It's you like inspire me and scare me all at the same time with that because that's just not my lane. All right, so I got a few things. Also, I want to clap it up for Christina Didmore. Can we give her an enthusiastic golf clap? She's the brains in this operation, put all this together. First off, couple things. I'll be quick. It's a little bit longer than usual, but first off, don't leave. So hang out. So we got Zoe slanging Jello shots back there. She's ready to go. Somebody maybe asked a question that you're like, hey, I got to go talk to that person. Hang out, meet somebody new. We're going to tie Zach to a chair, and he'll be here for a while. You're not leaving, right? So you can ask him some more questions. Our next meetup, 5 weeks from tonight, 11/29, Wednesday, November 29th. We have an awesome speaker. Everybody's going to know who he is. I can't tell you who he is yet, but he's coming. So that's my teaser. I won't tell you afterwards, but it's going to be really awesome. So stay tuned. It's coming in a couple days. Lastly, I have two big announcements and something that I'm just excited about. So first off, if you guys have been coming to this group for a while, you know this group it's not a front for our business. It's actually the other way around. Our businesses are in place to kind of help investors and do that. But I do have some business stuff. So first off, big announcement, Full Circle Property Management as of tomorrow is now Blue Sky Homes. So we've actually gone through with a branding company, spent a few months going through that process, and it just better represents who we are, what we do through management, sales, and investments, and just represents that three-legged stool. So big announcement going out with that for tomorrow. Also, we're happy to announce that we've launched our real estate sales team as well. So we're not new to the sales side. I've been an agent for 5 years, but I'm really excited about our lead. I was able to snag Morgan Michelson, and she's just amazing. She's our team lead. She's done over 150 transactions the last few years and top producer. So we're excited to have her. And we traded 2 first-round draft picks and a couple bags of cash. Christina Ditmore also signed up on our team, so we're excited to have her as an agent as well. She deserves it. She knows how to evaluate deals. I wanted to mention, too, we get a lot of agents that come, and we've partnered with a lot of agents, on the management side, and we want to continue to do that. So we're sending this out tomorrow. You guys will all get it, but our agent referral program is still going to be in place. Whether it's helping agents with rental analysis and all that kind of good stuff. We're actually going to be looking for agents on the team as well. So, but finally, I'm really excited about this. So, again, my personal mission is to help as many regular people to financial freedom through residential real estate investing. And so, our businesses are a front to do that. Obviously, we got experienced agents, 20-year plus on the management side. But really what I'm excited about is next year, the stuff we're going to do on the investment side. So we love doing the meetup. We love providing information. Zach, that was great. But really just tools, resources, and actual vehicles to help people get it done. So it's just so much more than just information and knowledge, which is great. But actually, one-on-one roadmaps, helping people get from A to Z is really what we want to do. So Christina makes fun of me, but I say it all the time. You can't steer a parked car. So, just sitting here and learning is one thing, but we want to really help people get it done. So other than that, that was it. That went faster. Oh, nobody wants swag. Like, you guys all own your own businesses. You don't want our stuff. But I do have T-shirts in the back and hats, and you're going to like this. Hold on. Let's see. That's going to drop and be awful. Yes. Nobody wants our swag, but check this out. We got... If you want a T-shirt, grab one in the back. This is peace, love, and cash flow. I mean, come on. You can get behind that, right? There's 5 different quotes, so... This one's good. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing, Warren Buffett. So these are good gym T-shirts, right? So anyway, grab some of those in the back. There's hats and all that. Spread the love, and that's it. Thanks for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you guys.